Good morning, Dr. Wilson.
Good morning.
I have some questions to ask you concerning the 1980s.
Okay, I think I can remember them.
Okay. So my first question is, what effects did you experience during the recession in the 1980s?
Um, it was, for me personally, not a lot. It affected my family. My dad's job changed. His company that he worked for actually went out of business here in Birmingham. They were involved in a lot of construction work. They sold heavy machinery. So my dad actually had to redefine his role in the workplace. He ended up creating his own company out of that and actually did better eventually. But that was a trying time. For me personally, I think that there was some, we watched rising prices, gas prices especially, starting in the 80s.
Okay. In the 1980s, President Reagan coined the term trickle-down economics. What effect did you see that it had on the U.S.?
Well, I mean, to make it simple, to me, in my view, it was the rich get richer, and the people in the middle, and some of the middle moved up. I don't think it was a great deal, but what's supposed to happen is if you put money up here, then it's going to trickle down through the economy. I'm not so sure that worked across the board.
Do you believe that we are still seeing some of the effects from that from the 80s?
Probably so. A lot of people have made Reagan a real hero since those years, and I think you see people going back and looking at some of the policies that were initiated during the Reagan years, and going back to some of those policies. Not specifics, but in the campaign you hear a lot of mention about President Reagan and his economic and social policies.
In the 1980s, what do you remember concerning the Iran-Contra affair?
Truthfully, not a whole lot. I remember the name. I'm not sure exactly what it had to do with. I know that it had to do with arms sales and things like that. So I knew there was a lot of controversy. Previously, Iran had gone from a monarch, which was the Shah, to back to a theocracy, and the hostage situation had taken place, and so it was not a good relationship. But to my knowledge, the Iran-Contra situation was illegal sale of arms from U.S. to Iran.
During this time, also the Challenger exploded. What do you remember from the time when the Challenger exploded?
I mean, that was devastating. That was a time when that space travel was still viewed as something exceptional. It wasn't routine like it's become, though we don't fly the space shuttle anymore. And when you're my age, you can remember dates, not exactly dates, but things that happened involving that. Because I go all the way back to when we used to watch the launches of the Apollo, and before that, we used to watch them in school on the old black and white TV, and it was something historic and monumental. And when that happened, it was very devastating, and I think it set the space program back a bit.
Okay. In 1989, the HIV epidemic exploded on the scene in the 80s. However, it was seen as a drug addiction disease or a homosexual disease or problem. What are your thoughts on how the government handled HIV during this time?
Well, I mean, personally, I think a lot of people would be alive that are not if our government had addressed that as they do other diseases. I think that because it was a disease that affected mostly minorities, that it was overlooked too long.
How do you think it's being addressed today?
Um, You know, it's become now where it's a treatable disease. It's become more chronic, like diabetes or other treatable diseases, but there's still no cure. And while we can typically afford the drugs in this country, it doesn't mean that people in other countries can't. And I think that we should, just like we do any other disease that affects our population in general and in the world, things like that go that continue to go on actually end up costing all of us money. So the research and development of a vaccine should be ongoing, and it should be robust, just like it is with cancer and with heart disease and any other kind of disease in the population.
Okay, in 1984, Jesse Jackson ran for president. What impact do you think his running for president had on President Obama running and winning the election in 2008?
Well, you know, that was the not the first African American who had run for president. You know, Shirley Chisholm had actually run for president, but Jesse Jackson was the first, actual person that could gain some ground in that area, and I think that the progress that he made, though he was not nominated, showed younger people, like Barack Obama might have been at the time, that the possibility was there, that you could actually run for elected office, be successful, and have sights on higher offices such as the presidency.
How has the Republican and the Democratic parties changed, if any, since the 1980s?
I think the current election has opened our eyes to a lot, though the Democratic Party has been very aware of problems of people who are struggling, be they black, white, red, or yellow, and promoting social programs to help people. I think that programs without seeing, I think we end up getting people stuck in certain situations, and we don't provide enough job training, we don't put enough money in our schools. The Republican Party has been the party of no, so they've been the obstacle to a lot of thoughtful programs that President Obama was not able to get through because of the Republican Party.
Okay. In the 1980s, Michael Jackson's video Thriller became popular. What effect do you think it had on the creating of music videos, other music videos?
Well, I mean, Michael Jackson was a pioneer in that area, and not only for the music video genre in general with MTV back then, but he was the first African American to really have popular videos on MTV. So it's all about marketing and about being seen and then ultimately selling records, and Michael Jackson was a genius there.
Okay. In 1985, Michael Jordan's first pair of basketball shoes, Jordan 1s, were debuted for $65. Today, they're about $160. What effect did him signing with Nike have on the athletic wear?
Well, um, it boosted the endorsement deals that are now all across athletics, and so when you're a successful athlete in any area, there are promotional and endorsement opportunities, because when you think about it, an athlete, yeah, they get paid a lot, but their careers are, it's not like you're going to go to work for a company and work 30 years and then retire. You know, their ability to perform in a certain portion of the athletic arena is very short. So it just provides them an opportunity to extend their time in the marketplace and their brand.
Okay. And in 1980s, fashion was a big thing. What fashion designs or styles do you see today resurfacing from the 80s?
Wow. Um, I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, the 80s to me were not distinct. I mean, you had what did they call glam rock, so you had these rockers with this big hair and all this kind of makeup and stuff, and you certainly don't see that again. I just don't remember the 80s as being very distinct in the area of fashion. I think you saw designers continue and become very big, like Calvin Klein, and there was a lady named Diane von Furstenberg who created what they called the simple work dress, that she made millions and millions and millions of dollars in her designs, and that's about all I remember about 80s fashion.
Okay.
I know the hair was big everywhere.
Is there anything that you remember that I didn't touch on about the 80s that was significant for you?
No, the 80s was kind of the 70s were the late 60s, mid 60s to late 60s, and the 70s were pretty eventful with the end of the war in Vietnam, a lot of social unrest, a lot of social protest, and the 80s were just to me a very calm time in life.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
Thank you, Dr. Miss Maiden.